All right, it's Monday. Let's fill it up again. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin some breaking news out of California, where wildfires are threatening the Simi Valley just north of Los Angeles. Now, evacuations have been ordered and more than 700 acres have been scorched so far, probably by a hobo underneath a bridge somewhere. But if this fire burns through the election day, I really can't imagine Democrats even standing a chance at winning their own elections. Plus, just hours before Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are scheduled to meet in Beijing, a Russian drone just plowed into a Chinese ship on its way to a Ukrainian port. The empty ship, flying under the Marshall Islands flag, was struck early this morning on its way to port to load up on iron ore. Looks like Putin and Xi are going to have quite a bit to talk about. And we're even keeping an eye on the developing story of a shooting at an Islamic center in San Diego, where a pair of gunmen killed 3 people. Now, the 2 gunmen are dead. We're going to continue to follow this story. But first, government goes after citizen. Citizen sues government over the sham that it was. Oh, by the way, wins the presidential election at the same time, and liberals say it's all a scam and he should be impeached over it? Yeah, right. Let's do this. So the latest freakout from the left is because Trump dropped his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS in exchange for a $1.776 billion fund set up for truth and justice compensation for people who were victims of Biden's weaponization of government, which there are a lot of. It's apparently, though, a scam, according to Democrats. Keep in mind, Trump and his family will get $0 in exchange for just simply an apology from the IRS and a fund set up for every other person who Biden targeted but not himself. Kind of like the Trump org when they couldn't get any COVID money whatsoever, but everyone else did. But the left is still freaking out. Wow, Trump's enriching himself off the taxpayers. No, wrong. But here's a U.S. senator saying it anyway.
Donald Trump has figured out that he can sue the federal government. He can basically sue himself, and then he can settle that case to make himself billions of dollars. Essentially, it's larceny. He's stealing your money, and he's using a court case as pretext.
Hey, Chris, my senator, unfortunately, Trump's not making billions of dollars off the government. In fact, he's not even taking a paycheck. So technically, you, Chris, are taking more money from the government than he is. But let me explain why Trump was suing the federal government in the first place. And I'll do it like you're 5, because clearly you aren't winning any IQ tests recently. See, when the federal government was run by idiots and Democrats like you, Senator Murphy, there was this guy named Charles Littlejohn who used to work for the IRS. He had high-level access, who is, by the way, now in jail for 5 years. And why is that? Well, Carl, I'll tell you. Because he accessed secure, locked, specific, need-to-know information that were, in fact, Trump's tax returns. Actually, the whole family's tax returns, about 100 other people from the Trump organization, along with 400,000 other people's tax returns. Then he leaked it to the New York Times and ProPublica. Yeah. He was convicted of that. That's not an opinion. That's a proven fact in court. And under U.S. Code 267431, it's a $1,000 fine per disclosure. Charles Littlejohn worked for the IRS, ergo, Trump sued the IRS for the disclosures for his returns and, like I said, 100 other people who worked for him. That was distributed through thousands of other publications, additional disclosures, that reached $10 billion in violations cumulatively. That was a mathematical equation done by lawyers, not some random number that he picked out of the air. So tell me again, Chris Murphy, what is the scam?
I know it's hard to keep track of all of these scams Donald Trump is running to make himself rich.
Right. You know, I was watching this today. It's this kind of reminds me of that Jeff Foxworthy and Bill Engvall skit, Stupid People Should Wear Signs. So you know they're stupid, and you just don't ask them anything. Like, hey, what do you think about Trump, Chris? Oh, never mind. Saw your sign. Just going to leave this one alone. That would save me a ton of time. Anyway, people like Chris Murphy must have some weird case of selective amnesia, because I remember him sitting silently by while the Biden administration gave, and I'm not exaggerating here, $5 trillion in grants over his first 4 year, or his only 4, thank God, 4 years in office, much of which went to programs in states like, I don't know, Minnesota, where Somalis stole it. billions, 10 billion, 9 billion, something like that, sent it back to Mogadishu. That wasn't a scam, right, Chris? Or the hundreds of billions of dollars California has spent on homeless people while the population has gotten worse. Or the $100 billion he spent on a high-speed rail that never got built. Or the millions in money that flowed into Newsom's wife's nonprofit, where she got paid pretty well. Or that Michigan Democrat donor Faye Badon, who got $20 million in grants. Oh, how about the EPA that rushed billions out the door before Trump took office, right after Trump won the 2024 election that random nonprofits got? Don't forget about the hundreds of billions in COVID loans that were going to completely fraudulent organizations, or the $30 million in federal student loan aid to dead people, billions in home health care fraud that Dr. Oz has been completely all over. You've got Medicaid fraud and tax fraud and cashing welfare checks after the recipient has been dead for years. Not a word from Chris Murphy there, but Trump bad. Democrats used government, taxpayer dollars to go after Trump, where Biden's White House worked with Fannie Willis in Fulton County to charge him in a state RICO case to ensure, if he ever won again, which he did, thankfully, he could not pardon himself. Fannie Willis actually got thrown off the case for bad ethics, so the case got thrown out, but only after Democrats used his mugshot for almost every campaign ad in the 2024 election. Now that hangs outside the Oval Office, by the way, because Trump owned you. The White House sent a top 3 DOJ official, Michael Colangelo, all the way down the chain to work for Manhattan District Alvin Bragg to make maybe one misdemeanor accounting error. They turned that into 34 felony counts somehow. Then they locked him in a courtroom at the height of the campaign trail to take him off the trail. You had Reid Hoffman, one of the biggest liberal donors, prop up E. Jean Carroll to make up a story about how Trump raped her when she couldn't name any details about that. Then they had the New York State legislature change the statute of limitations so they could charge Trump with it, and claims that you couldn't prove in a criminal court, even in deep blue New York, by the way, which is why they declined to do it in criminal court, which in civil court got an $83 million judgment against Trump that was just paused by a higher, less biased court. You impeached Trump for a phone call to Ukraine at the word of some low-level, insubordinate, chubby army officer for asking about the left's corruption. You spent $40 million, Democrats, on a Russian collusion scam that you guys knew wasn't true. Found nothing in a multi-year investigation. They same Democrats went after Trump for an insurrection when we now know that the FBI, through the deep state, had over 274 FBI agents, informants, and assets in the crowd, and then targeted people who were apparently so militant and rowdy that they actually walked inside the rope line set up in the Capitol dome that you then threw in solitary confinement without trial. They had the FBI raid Donald Trump's home of Mar-a-Lago for documents that were mostly sent down there by Biden's White House and the National Archives, the same people who said they needed them back so bad. The very people who said he shouldn't have them wanted them back after sending it. But then they brought classified cover sheets with them to lay everything out and put them over them so they could stage pictures, where there were authorized deadly force on that raid of the former president of the United States. You think about how crazy this is. The entire federal government was the left slush fund to do whatever they want. It's been for years. The IRS is also just another symptom of this cesspool. Going back to Lois Lerner under Barack Obama, who targeted the Tea Party, and Trump settling for not a dime for himself is a scam? Are you high? My compromise would have been to disband the entire federal agency, reappropriate all their salaries for the J6 political prisoners and a couple other people that really took it from the Biden administration. Maybe take that $10 billion from myself for just the headache that I endured. And then I would use every penny of it to go after every single person, every single Democrat, even the ones in government and outside the government who targeted me for civilly. And I would do it all in civil courts all across the country until the cows come home or I got tired or died. It's worth noting that the same IRS he was suing, that Chris Murphy is defending, the IRS employees themselves owe $50 million in back taxes. Yet here we are, leaking returns, auditing us. Sweet, guys. I mean, come on. Lecture us more about how Trump suing the people who went after every aspect of his life is somehow a scam. Biden's entire presidency was a scam. They went after everything Trump, his companies, his supporters, and presidency, and now it's a conflict of interest after it was proved that he was wronged for him to sue the very people that wronged him. By the way, the majority of America agrees with this opinion over here on our side because we re-elected him to be the president and rein it in. And now what? Now the left has been reduced to talking about a bruise on Trump's hand, calling him old. Like, where were you when Biden was calling lids at 2 p.m., drinking Metamucil and wandering off into the jungle like he was blind? You people are pathetic. Attorney at Judicial Watch, author of the fantastic book Defiant, and was also the one who received the warrant during the raid on Mar-a-Lago, Christina Bobb. And we also, Newsmax legal analyst, my friend J-Town. Bob, when you put it all in one place, it just sounds even worse.
What they have done to Donald Trump, his supporters, and anybody who just opposes this left stranglehold on the federal government, I mean, they have just destroyed thousands of people. I mean, you talked about the January 6th. There were people who were in jail for 4 years without a trial. I mean, there was no due process given. They were just jailed simply for speaking out, simply for protesting. So I think the fact that the president has initiated this and started this is fantastic because he recognizes that there's a lot of people who were political targets, who were very seriously harmed and ruined. Exactly. So I think it's an important first step, and I'm grateful to see it get off the ground.
Jay, but look, you can prove most of the stuff that they went after Trump for was complete hogwash. Yet they're saying it's a scam. Are these people just programmed to be morons?
Well, Senator Murphy and Norm Eisen and 93 apoplectic House Democrats are really having a bad night, especially if they watch your monologue, Carl. It is beholden to see. Look, there's great precedent for this anti-weaponization fund. Obama started one for discrimination against Native American farmers in 2016, going back all the way into the 80s. So this isn't a new thing. And Judge Sullivan, a very liberal judge on the D.C. Circuit, said that the Keep Siegel Fund was the best settlement he'd ever seen. So DOJ, Todd Blanche, acting AG, is following that model here. And look, you're 100% right. They didn't come up with $10 billion by throwing a dart. And don't forget that the statute you referenced, 267431, I think it was, also calls for punitive damages. And it's not just Trump, it's also his family, it's also the Trump organization. So Todd Blanche, look, for pennies on the dollar, saved the government quite a bit of money in this lawsuit.
Yeah, no, 100%. Here's something that happened today. You've got Judge Jeanine Pirro coming out because apparently you have this teen takeover in Chipotle. A bunch of rowdy teenage kids, here we are, look, imagine that, Bob. You go in there, you're like, hey, I'd like to have a burrito, double steak with some ouch, and you get hit in the head with a high chair for some idiots. I would lose my mind.
Yeah, not just the patrons, but the owners of that Chipotle franchise and Chipotle themselves. I mean, nobody wants to go to a restaurant, whether it's Chipotle or anywhere else, where they can't just get their meal and do what they want to do. And unfortunately, that's D.C. right now. I mean, we've got the National Guard out, which has helped clean up the streets, but without real, true law enforcement, local law enforcement being empowered to do what they're supposed to do, which is stop behavior like this, this is always going to be the struggle. And I applaud Jeanine Pirro for wanting to crack down on this, but it really is Muriel Bowser who needs to get a hold of the city and empower DC Metro Police to actually enforce the law and protect not just the patrons, but the business owners as well, because we want our businesses to thrive.
Yeah. Jay, I want you to listen to Judge Jeanine Pirro this afternoon. Roll this.
It was a takeover of a restaurant by individuals who felt that they could get away with it. The message that lawlessness runs the streets is over. The city belongs to law-abiding residents, not roaming mobs looking to make a name for themselves or to contribute to the chaos or violence and to get social media attention. These are not kids being kids. This is criminal conduct.
Jay, but there's also some weird statute in D.C. that they can treat you as a juvenile up to the point of 25 years old or something.
Yeah, in a lot of states, it's even 21. I spent most of my adult life doling out punishment for criminal behavior. And I can tell you that what we saw under the Biden administration is an absolute lapse in any consequence for breaking the law. We saw CVS's and Walgreens and other businesses just shutting down because they could no longer afford the losses they were suffering just by the law enforcement, the judges, the DAs. They're all just letting the streets run wild. And so, the juvenile system in this country really needs to be examined. I understand that if someone's 18, they break the law, that perhaps we don't want them to have a record. But what's happening is these 16, 17-year-olds have 25, 30 juvenile charges, and it can never be used against them when they're an adult. That has to change.
Yeah, and you should probably make tasers great again down in D.C., just for now. Christina, Jay, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up. Yeah, you get electrocuted, you might not throw a chair next time. All right, coming soon to a city near you. Unless you're in New York City, then you're already getting a taste of Ma'am Danny's America. Just wait until you see this. But first, Democrats are absolutely losing their mind over redistricting, and now Gavin Newsom is sounding the alarm as Republicans finally start fighting back. Wait till you hear what he said, which could be anti-democracy. Andrew Klavan joins me live next.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Did you hear about Shield, that test for colon cancer?
No, what?
It's just a blood test.
No.
Exactly.
So I don't have to spend time doing all that other stuff?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield from the company trusted in blood tests for cancer for over a decade.
I wish I loved my smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish money wasn't so tight.
I wish I can justify the cost.
I wish my insurance could save me more on dental implants.
See what it can do at ClearChoice. Show us your insurance card and save $5,000 on fixed full double arch implants. That's insurance assurance on a smile that's built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories at Ancestry.
Democrats are apoplectic over redistricting because Republicans finally decided they're done playing defense. And now California Governor Gavin Newsom completely spiraling over the possibility that Democrats could actually lose power. Watch this.
I've said this before, so I'll repeat it. I don't anticipate this need to be the case, but there is a break the glass scenario. And there's many people that have a deep understanding of what it would look like if Democrats were locked out. And we're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll leave it at that.
It's just so funny that Democrats call any Republican a threat to democracy right before talking about break the glass scenario to stay in power. I mean, what is that? These people are the worst. Host of the Andrew Klavan Show, Andrew Klavan himself. Sir, I mean, what could this possibly be, and how democratic, dare I say, is it?
Good to see you, Carl. And yeah, I assume what they're going to do is divide the primaries so both Republicans and Democrats have their separate primaries, changing the rules in the middle of an election, which we've seen them do
during
not
an election
that long ago. Exactly. Yeah. So this is the way they work. This is how they roll. You know, if they lose the Supreme Court, they want to pack the court. If they lose, the argument, they want to stop free speech. If they're losing an election, they want to change the rules. That's the way they roll. And at this point, I'm sorry, but at this point, this election is a test of California's intelligence. I used to work in Hollywood, and I can tell you that the weather there is like a drug. It makes you high and it makes you stupid at the same time. Los Angeles is burned to the ground. You can't rebuild anything. Billions of dollars vanish overnight. Where's their high-speed rail? Not only that, where's their high-speed rail, and where's the money for their high-speed rail? Their healthcare system is a complete scam.
Homeless.
This Democrat Party in California is a criminal enterprise, really, and I don't see what they're going to be voting for, but they may pull it off. There's so many, it's a one-party state, and they may just get away with it.
Well, you brought up the IQ test for California, and California is actually seeing there's like 900,000 Republican ballots already. I mean, that's like 5 times what it normally is in early voting.
Yeah, and not only that, Spencer Pratt, his ads have been making the rounds and they've been going viral. Those ads are not paid for. Those are not political ads. Those are just people using AI to make ads. So there is an angry constituency out there that is ready for change. And look, California at base has a very capitalist mindset. For all the communist speeches you hear at the Oscars, Hollywood is the most capitalist enterprise in America. They do not want their dreams crushed any more than anybody else. So every now and again, they wake up as if from a deep sleep and they elect a Republican. Last time, unfortunately, they elected Schwarzenegger, who overplayed his hand and went up against the teachers' unions. At the same time, he tried to make a lot of other reforms, and he was crushed. But I think a smart Republican could change the nature of that state for a long time to come. Ronald Reagan did, and I think it could happen again.
Yeah, well, let's hope people wise up. Sometimes it's got to get worse before it gets better, and it's pretty bad. Yeah. Like burned to the ground bad. Tomorrow is obviously the Kentucky primary. Now, you've got, this is an interesting one. You got Thomas Massie running against a fellow team guy, Ed Gallerin, who's endorsed by Trump. Now, look, Massie, lay this out for the viewers. Massie votes 90% of the time with Trump. And if you search in AI, what Congress member best exemplifies the Constitution? Go do it yourself, folks. Massie's name is #1 every single time. However, he has opposed Trump on things like the Big Beautiful Bill and stuff like that, which he has voted on the constitutionality of, and he wanted smaller bills. Gallerin may smoke him.
Yep, it's absolutely true. Trump has targeted him, and Trump is a very powerful voice. Yeah. And it is unfair. I mean, Massie, look, Massie's been accused of anti-Semitism. He's been accused of anything, but his principles seem to me to be pretty straightforward. He's against foreign aid, so he's not against foreign aid to Israel. He's against foreign aid everywhere, and he doesn't want to be in any wars.
And the Israeli lobby has poured in millions of dollars against him as well.
Yeah, because they want the Iran attacked, and I don't blame them. I think we should be doing what we're doing in Iran. But Massie, I think it's a simplistic point of view, but it's not a point of view without integrity. And so I think he's been unfairly treated. But at the same time, he's a thorn in Trump's side. And at this point, I think I have to say, I want Trump to have the full support of as many congressmen and senators as he can get, because the Congress seems to be incapable of doing anything if they have any kind of opposition. So, I guess I have to go with Trump on this, but I think Thomas Massie is being unfairly treated.
I'm anxiously awaiting to see what happens here, so we'll find out. But also Tommy Robinson, he's the guy we had on last Thursday. He had a Unite the Kingdom protest. Now, the media over there is like, it was only 50,000 people. And as we're zooming out, I want you to, while you start answering this question, I want you to see if you can count to the nearest 100,000. That crowd.
Yeah, that's a crowd of at least 1 million people, at least. And this is something that has mystified me. I lived in England for a long time as well. And I always used to trouble me. Why are they adopting this idea that, multiculturalism is a good thing for them? That's an American idea. It makes sense in America, where we have this creedal idea that we can train anybody as long as we let people in legally and slowly. We can train them to be Americans. England never had that idea. They've always been a racial country, just like France, just like Germany. I don't know why Europe has allowed its politicians to open the gates to this incredible immigration that is destroying their culture and their countries.
One thing's for sure, the UK is tired of the Islam, but we'll see how that plays out. Andrew Klavan, appreciate it.
Great to see you. Thanks.
Coming up, is Cuba looking to attack the United States? It's been, 5 decades since we had to worry about that. But a new news report suggests that the communist regime that's out of fuel is going to try to make a move at Florida. I don't know. Next, we'll talk about it.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green-lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy one bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy one, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
I'm former Mets manager Terry Collins. The Tunnel Towers Foundation is very important to me, and I look for ways to try to support them any way I can. If a first responder is killed in the line of duty, T2T will pay off the mortgage for their family. That's just one of the ways T2T makes a difference. You can support their cause as well by donating $11 a month. Go to T2T.org, let's go Mets, and let's help Tunnel Towers.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Cuba wouldn't be dumb enough to attack the U.S., right? Well, according to a new Axios report, Cuba has acquired over 300 military drones and have discussed plans to attack the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay, which is in Cuba, and possibly even Key West, just 90 miles from the Cuban island. I don't know what fuel they're going to use because they ran out of it last week. But this comes as just days after the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, he actually visited Cuba. He was spotted down there. Now, a Chinese and Russian proxy is what Cuba is. We're warned that officials against any type of hostilities. And today, Cuba's president said that any U.S. military action would result in a bloodbath. Oh, okay, sure. Cuban American Heritage Foundation senior policy analyst for Latin America, Andres Martinez Fernandez, and Newsmax contributor and retired General Blaine Holt. All right, Andres, look, does Cuba have the capability to do this? 2, why would they when we would turn the rest of that into a larger Gulf of America?
Well, you know, the Cuban regime certainly has an ability to cause some damage to the United States and undermine U.S. national security. And that's been augmented by its partnerships in the past with the Soviet Union, cooperation with the Venezuelan regime, and now with the Chinese regime, as well as others. We have seen that pose a direct threat to the United States time and time again. And then you take that in addition to the predisposition of the Cuban communist dictatorship, which is led by true believers and anti-American thugs who have directly threatened repeatedly the United States and see very much the United States as an adversary to their country and their political project. So I very much think that the regime is entertaining this and pursuing this as a realistic path. And it's just another example of how this island dictatorship, just 90 miles off of the U.S. shores, is a really direct national security threat to the United States.
But General, I look at this and it's like, okay, so someone with an entire island the size of a backyard in Texas is going to be like, we're going to hit, you're going to be, got to worry about drinking a Mai Tai getting hit by some paper plane drone from Cuba. Like, really, dude, we're going to turn you into dust.
It's the Baghdad Bob theorem. Yeah. The more you're backed into a corner, the more you're going to bluster that, it'll be a bloodbath. We'll take you out. Oh, we're going to kill you. We've got terror cells all over America. Come on. They're orphaned by the Chinese. They're orphaned by the Russians. We've got an NSS out that covers down on that. We took care of Venezuela. The Cubans do have spies in our country. They probably have a couple of terror cells. But if the Cubans do anything that we can attribute to them, all they've done is open the door for us to take care of a clear and present danger to the United States of America. We would welcome that because we will take care of a problem that has existed for well over 5 decades. And honestly, either way, Cuba and its regime, they're coming out. I look forward next year to buying a 1957 2026 Chevrolet Bel Air. Can't wait.
Yeah, and the problem is communism. I don't know if they got that memo yet. But Andres, the DOJ is set to reportedly plan to unseal an indictment of the former Cuban president Raul Castro, obviously. Now, that's Fidel's little brother, ordering the downing of 2 humanitarian flights back in 1996. I mean, he's 94. Are they going to go snatch him in the middle of the night like Maduro?
Well, I think that's very much something that the Trump administration wants to transmit is a realistic possibility. This is a government, the Trump administration, which has repeatedly, President Trump has repeatedly said he's not taking options off the table when it comes to protecting the United States and confronting some of the most dangerous adversaries to the American people and our security. Sure. So I think it's very much within the realm of possibility. A lot of people are dismissing it, but we saw just a few weeks back how people were eagerly dismissing the possibility of operation in Venezuela, playing it down. It's all just bravado. It proved to be an incorrect assumption.
But General, my litmus test here, the Cubans are really happy generally about this. Like, nobody's fleeing the Key West to go back to Cuba in like a washing machine made boat. They're going the other way.
Bolsheviks. That's what's going on here. And the Cubans will be very happy for their liberation. Look, the Cubans have intel networks here. They've aided and abetted Hezbollah, the drug cartels, anybody who's anti-United States. And I think the move on the charges potentially for Castro, it's just another way of increasing the pressure and ratcheting up the pressure. But fairly soon, the Cuban people will understand that it's really that their regime is in the crosshairs. And we're about to befall that because there's a new doctrine. It's called Monroe 2.0 or Donroe 1.0. I don't care what you call it. Right. But we're going to mop up our own hemisphere. Cuba is going to be beautiful when it is free, and it will be. And that's, look, this is not hard. And no, they're not a clear and present danger to the United States.
Facts. And they're about 1 hurricane away from total chaos. So, Andres, General Holt, we appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, coming up, the president is back home from his historic trip to China and successful talks with President Xi, but now some experts are, armchair quarterbacking it a little bit. One of them is going to join me next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
This Memorial Day, we honor the brave who stood watch over our nation's security. At PC-Matic, we're proud to continue that legacy by protecting your digital world. From American homes and local businesses to our nation's government agencies, we provide the only cybersecurity that's 100% researched, developed, and supported right here in the USA. PC-Matic, American made, American strong. Visit PCMatic.com today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Memorial Day. Flags are up, grills are hot, and we're celebrating America's heroes. Omaha Steak celebrates with incredible savings, plus 8 free burgers crafted from premium-aged American beef. Military families save even more. omahasteaks.com/TV.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
President Trump returned Friday from his historic trip to meet with President Xi Jinping in China, and he says the trip was a success for America, as we know, because China is now going to buy a bunch of soybeans as well as other agricultural products from our farmers.
We had a great stay. It was an amazing period of time. President Xi's an incredible guy. Got along, made a lot of great trade deals, including over 200 planes from Boeing with a promise of 750 planes, which will be by far the largest order ever if they do a good job.
But as the days pass since Trump's return, reports claim that there's some fallout from this summit. One saying that President Xi Jinping sent a secret message to Trump when telling the U.S. to avoid the Thucydides trap. It's some Greek thing, I don't know, referring to a concept used in international relations to describe the danger that occurs when a rising power, presumably China, threatens to displace an existing power, presumably America. Now, in this case, with our stance on Taiwan, and President Xi warned that the U.S. and China could enter some extremely dangerous place if Trump tries to block China's control of Taiwan, for which our stance has not changed even after this meeting. But one major person telling the point of how the summit really went, body language. Experts say that their body language on this trip spoke louder than words. So, body language expert Scott Rouse. All right, Scott, what did you see that we didn't?
Well, since there's not a lot of body language on here, that's the story. Because a lot of times when you see a lot going on, they're showing you the emotion and quite often they don't want you to see. And in this situation, they know this is a global situation. Everybody's going to be watching it. You're going to be watching it. I'm going to be watching it. We're going to be making decisions about what we're seeing. So even though it's a little bit of body language we see, it says a whole lot because of the way they're controlling their body language.
So the other thing, too, is like if you ever shaken hands with President Trump, he's one of those guys, grabs you, pulls you in tight, takes the upper hand. I noticed this handshake seemed extremely cordial.
Yeah, it really was. And the thing is, though, you always hear, oh, you get the upper hand in the deal, the upper hand in the handshake. President Trump comes in with his hand, with the bottom of his hand facing upward with the palm of his hand. He gives Xi the upper hand in the handshake. So that was, I thought, interesting. It shows a little bit of respect from President Trump to President Xi. There's a lot of that going on here. It's very subtle, but it's there. There's tons of those things in there. And you'll see when he pulls on his hand, which he usually, a lot of times he'll do, he'll shake somebody's hand, sort of pull him towards him. It wasn't as hardcore a pull, but Xi just kind of sticks his hand out even further to ease up that tension between the two.
Some people making this big deal about some kabuki theater of him like touching his ears. He got out of the limo. What was this?
And those are little things we do when we try to get rid of that built-up stress and tension. That's called an adapter. And when you do that, sometimes you'll rub your hand, or you'll pat your leg, or you'll make a face or stretch your shoulders or something like that. But that doesn't mean anything whatsoever. There's no secret message there. There's no, dominance play there or anything. If you notice when he touches the car, it's the same kind of thing. You try to ground yourself. You try to adapt to the situation by getting rid of that built-up stress and tension.
So in your professional opinion, you do this obviously professionally, body language expert, would you conclude that most of the people who are analyzing this on other networks are completely full of it?
I'd say you nailed it. Because a lot of it is you can say anything about body language. It's a pseudoscience. There's so much science behind it, and when you look at what's actually going on, you look at it for real in the context of what's going on, which is what you're supposed to do. Look at what's happening with the behavior in the context of the environment they're in. There's not a whole lot going on there. They're controlling all of that.
Yeah,
and they know what they're doing, but there's no secrets, nothing like that going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Maybe. And just maybe, what you see is what you get. I don't know. But
yep.
I dropped out of college, so I have no doctorate in anything. But Scott, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Coming up, we brought this up Friday, but Americans apparently don't want these data centers in their backyards. They're fed up with government prioritizing data centers ahead of residents' water supply. Culture Clash is going to be a banger next.
My friends, I come to you today on behalf of the Jewish people in Ukraine whose lives have been completely destroyed. Family and loved ones brutally killed. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is inside of Ukraine, providing emergency food and supplies to tens of thousands of people. But the food crisis is growing for Jewish families and especially for the elderly.
I am shocked how many elderly people came here. They're afraid, and they realize now that there are more people than boxes.
For just $25, you can help rush an emergency food box to the elderly Jews in Ukraine. Many of them are hungry, frightened, and alone. Your gift helps provide critical food when it's needed most. Call or go online now.
The people of Ukraine are caught in the crosshairs of war. Many of these precious people are Holocaust survivors, elderly Jews who are sick and dying. They have no food, and we must reach them now before it's too late.
The world is in a war again. I am alone. I'm afraid of the bombs. I'm scared. I am old. There is no food.
Just $25 helps rush emergency food to elderly Jews in Ukraine who are in urgent need today. Please call, scan, or go online right now.
I will not starve. Thank you, good people.
We can be the hope to the Jewish people who are suffering in Ukraine. Your help is desperately needed now.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone, building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about newer sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
All right, we brought this up on the show on Friday, but people really don't want these data centers in their communities. Town hall after town hall after town hall of residents screaming at their town officials, rejecting the idea, yet these towns still somehow approve the construction of these data centers. Another example, Andover, New Jersey. This is a crazy story. At a meeting they were proposing a data center in the town, local police forced a man out of the room after he continued speaking beyond the allotted time during his public comment, which was very short, by the way, and called out the mayor for lying about the data on this data center. And it just so happens that one of the arresting officers in the video was that mayor's son. I mean, weird. Too bad there's this pesky Supreme Court decision called New York Times versus Sullivan, where debate, quote, on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may very well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. And you can't just give the guy a minute to talk. Now, because of the backlash the mayor's receiving, he's now backing down on this data center, saying no project, no money is worth tearing a town apart at its seams. Yeah. That's what the kid was trying to say to you before your son arrested him. Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark and Daily Caller senior politics reporter Ashley Brasfield. Chrissy, what do you make of this?
This is absolutely insane that we live in a time where this is happening. But, you know, we saw this with the school board meetings, with a lot of school boards silencing parents, cutting off microphones when they were trying to do the bare minimum, really, and go after and protect their kids. And now, of course, we're going to see this with massive activism like this. You know, what's really kind of crazy about it is I could see it from the left and the right why people are protesting this. And so it really is kind of a unifying message for people that there are some things that both the left and the right can agree on, and yet we can still go out there, fight these things, and fight these corrupt politicians. And I think that this data center is like a perfect example of that, Carl.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I say, look, put them in the cities if you want them in the cities. That's where the data's going anyway. Don't put them in, you know, rural backyards that are getting eminent domain to put them in. Ashley, talk about mess around and find out, though. A woman, Desiree Sagari, 41, sentenced to 14 months in federal prison for posting on TikTok, telling people to go shoot MAGA supporters on site. She was charged with interstate communication of a threat to injure, and I can't think it happened to a better person.
Yeah, so she's facing up to now 5 years in prison. These are federal charges. You can't do this. And that's exactly, it's like screaming fire in a crowded theater at this point. I mean, you're making threats. And of course, she didn't use the word gun on purpose here because you'll get flagged on places like TikTok. So instead she says pew pew.
It's always the eyes. Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes.
It's absolutely insane, Carl. And so when you have people like this, you have to see the consequences. And you're exactly right. FAFO and doing something like this in the places like a state of Florida, which really is a MAGA stronghold at this point. What did you think was going to happen?
Right, exactly. Yeah, Ron DeSantis, I hear, has a lot of patience for that.
I'm all for free speech, but that's out of control.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I mean, look, you just can't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Chrissy, speaking of people that have lost their minds, a middle school in Boca Raton, Florida, the rat's mouth, is now accepting applications. It's the Acceptance Academy Community School. It's going to be a private, nonprofit middle school for LGBTQ, queer, gay, weird freak shows, and bullied youth. The president of the Acceptance Academy Foundation explains why he founded the school. Watch this.
There's a real demand for a safe space for kids to learn and to be themselves. And middle school years are particularly the time when kids are starting to grow.
So what happens when the most judgmental section of society starts judging each other at this school?
Yeah, let's just be clear. This is not a school for gay kids. This is a school for mentally unwell kids. Because if you are, you're gay or you're a lesbian, you get a bad haircut, you're going to get bullied in middle school. That's just the way of the world. It makes you a stronger, tougher person. When you make your entire identity surrounding your gender identity and your sexuality, that is when your feelings get hurt. That is when you think that school isn't a safe space for you. So this isn't a place for people who are consistently going through the trials and tribulations of, a puberty-laden school, which is just middle school. This is for mentally unwell people who just can't seem to grasp their hand around the idea that not everything should be a safe space. And sometimes you just have to toughen up.
Yes, and they always forget this neat little thing where their freedom ends where mine begins, and I can say whatever I want. And if you're offended by it, grow up. I don't know. But Ashley, speaking of growing up, there's another union out there requesting a whole bunch of money. The Long Island Railroad workers are now on strike. And now this doesn't apply to most people in the country, but it's another union story. Okay. First off, they are among the highest paid people in the country in the conductor industry. They want a 9.5% raise. And that was actually the offer from MTA, but they demanded 14.5% raise over 4 years. Now, the LIRR employees, as I said, average income $121,646, plus an average of $25,000 in overtime on top of that. So the typical LIRR employee makes $150,000 a year in a nation that has a $68,000 median income. Okay? They're making more than the average person who lives on Long Island. That's crazy. But I would say, actually, too, Ashley, I would go along with this, and maybe you would agree with me, if every freaking train was on time every single time, otherwise you dock all that pay.
No, you're exactly right. I think the standard is raised in that instance, but you're living in places like on Long Island and New York City and New York, where the taxes are high, the cost of living is high. So you're looking at a higher median wage on that standpoint. But at the same time, I mean, you're looking at the idea that these also could be automated jobs eventually. So they should be aware of that. We saw this happen with dock workers back in 2025 going on strike with unions. So, I mean, you're exactly right. The standard has to be raised if you're expecting this. And I know average Americans, when they see that number of the average pay, they're rolling their eyes.
Yeah, and actually, they did just raise the payment over there too.
Yes.
So,
yes,
I'm trying to. They're gonna have to raise it again to cover all this for us. Well, whatever. Chrissy, Ashley, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Before we go, more Islamification coming to a New York City block near you. I mean, this is pretty much every day we're reporting on something like this, and it's spreading all across the country. More on that coming up next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked, and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Hello, I'm Franklin Graham. The world seems to be upside down, doesn't it? The hatred, the violence, the division, the wars. What's the hope? What's the future? Where's God in all of this? Well, God is still on the throne, and He knows everything about you, and He loves you. He made you. He created you. But we have a problem, and that problem is called sin, and sin separates us from God. But God sent His Son from heaven to this earth to take your sins. He died and shed His blood on a cross for your sins. He was buried. But on the third day, God raised Him to life. He's alive, and He'll come into your heart right now. That's right. Jesus is alive. If you've never trusted Him as your Savior, do it right now. Just pray this prayer with me. Just say, God, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I believe that Jesus is your Son, and I want to trust Him right now as my Savior and invite Him to come in to be the Lord of my life. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, call that number right now that's on the screen.
Leaf Filter is America's #1 gutter protection system because it's built right. Leaf Filter is designed to keep debris out of your gutters and water flowing. When it's built right, it shows. That's why it's Homes Approved. It's good to be #1. Always. Schedule your free gutter inspection today.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
All right, we are just finding out, this is a little bit breaking news, that Mark Furman, the LA police detective who rose to fame during the O.J. Simpson trial, he unfortunately passed away in Idaho last week. Now, he was obviously the star witness for the prosecution, the defense undermining his credibility. Soon after O.J. Simpson was acquitted of murder, Furman was 74 when he passed away. But here's something absolutely absurd that you probably should be aware of. It's an art installment that's been propped up just less than 5 minutes away on a walk from the 9/11 memorial. The kicker is it's a Muslim art piece that supposedly represents the neighborhood of Little Syria. Apparently this was a community from the late 1880s until the 1940s. First I'm hearing about it, but this is an art installment. It's called Al-Qalam or something, Poets in the Park, meant to represent the literary renaissance of the Middle East that they had to put next to 9/11. They had to do it, okay? Allegedly took place in Manhattan. And it was going to show scholars how retrieving Manhattan's vanished Syrian-American past. Now, maybe a little tinfoil hatty here, but that's what we do. And, it's a bit suspicious that they put it, or had to put it, this close to 9/11. It's kind of like a, in-your-face sort of thing. Of course, it's happening during the Islamification of NYC with a Muslim mayor. But 5 minutes of research can tell you that this whole group that they're supposed to be honoring was actually a Christian Syrian community here, but also Irish and German and Scandinavian settlers and Polish and other Slovak families to the same neighborhood came there. So other than the Potato Famine Museum in Manhattan, where there are art installations, or are we trying to change history here by making it only Muslim community gets recognition right down the street from the 9/11 memorial, Rob?
What's it, the
Little
Syrian? Little Syria?
Yeah.
I lived down there.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well, enjoy the memorial.
Right by the Trade Center, yeah.
Go down there this afternoon.
I'm going to have to go check it out and see what the hell they're up to. Yeah, Rector Street. That's near me. All right, Carl.
Word.
Good to see you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.